I realized something was wrong the moment my aunt handed me the tray. Not asked, handed. She didn't even look at my face, just shoved the silver tray into my hands like it was obvious where I belonged. "Make yourself useful," she said. "They'll want drinks soon." For a second, I thought she was joking. Then I looked around. The living room was full. Crystal glasses, linen napkins, people dressed in tailored suits and silk dresses, clustered in careful little circles like they were afraid of saying the wrong thing. Soft music played from hidden speakers. The smell of catered food hung in the air. This was my party, or at least it was supposed to be. I'd planned it, paid for it, booked the caterers, the musicians, the decor, chosen the guest list carefully, down to the last detail. But somehow, the moment my family arrived, the story had changed. I stood there holding the tray, frozen, while my aunt turned away and joined a group near the window. My mother caught my eye from across the room. She didn't look surprised. That should have been my first clue. "Mom?" I said softly, stepping toward her. "What's going on?" She adjusted her necklace without meeting my gaze. "Just help out for now, okay? Don't make a scene." A scene? At my own party? "Why am I serving?" I asked. She sighed like I was exhausting her. "Because people are arriving and the caterer is busy and you're not doing anything else." Not doing anything else? I felt heat crawl up my neck. "I'm the host," I said. She finally looked at me then. Her expression was tight, careful. "Yes," she said, "but this isn't really about you." That sentence landed harder than the tray in my hands. Before I could respond, my cousin leaned over from the couch. "Hey, grab me a sparkling water?" He said it casually, automatically, like this was normal. I didn't move. He looked up, annoyed. "Well?" Every instinct in me screamed to put the tray down, to say something, to stop this before it became real. But I could feel the eyes on me now, measuring, curious, waiting to see what role I would accept. So I did the thing I'd been trained to do my whole life. I swallowed, and I served the drinks. I moved through the room slowly, offering glasses with a polite smile that felt like it might crack my face in half. People took them without really looking at me. Some nodded thanks. Others didn't even do that. "Champagne? White or red? Still or sparkling?" Each question felt smaller than the last. Someone laughed behind me. "Wow," my uncle said loudly. "Didn't know we hired extra staff." A few people chuckled. I kept walking, because that's what they expected. Because for as long as I could remember, my family had been rewriting my role the moment someone important entered the room. They loved to tell the story of how I was helpful, low maintenance, not ambitious like the others. They told it with smiles, with pride. I stopped near the dining table to refill the tray and heard my sister's voice drift over the music. "So, who's the guest of honor again?" someone asked. My sister laughed. "Some big deal from the industry. Honestly, I don't even know why she insisted on this whole thing." Insisted. Like I hadn't organized it. Like I hadn't written the check. "Well," another woman said, "it's nice of her family to throw something so elegant." My sister didn't correct her. I tightened my grip on the tray. The guest of honor was supposed to arrive soon. That had been the whole point of tonight. A quiet celebration, a recognition dinner, a chance to bring together people who mattered, professionally and personally. I'd wanted my family there because, stupidly, I thought it might finally change how they saw me. Instead, it gave them an audience. "Can you take these empties?" my aunt said, appearing beside me again and stacking glasses onto my tray without asking. I nearly dropped it. "Careful," she snapped. "These are expensive." I bit back a laugh. "Everything here is expensive," I thought, "including the silence you're demanding from me." The doorbell rang. A subtle chime, but it cut through the room like a bell in a courtroom. Conversations paused. People straightened. My mother moved instinctively toward the entryway. "That must be them," she said, smoothing her hair. Them. Not him. Not the guest of honor. Just them. I stood near the edge of the room, tray still in my hands, watching as my family rearranged themselves into something respectable. Smiles appeared. Postures changed. Voices softened. The front door opened. I couldn't see who stepped inside at first, just the shift in energy, the way people leaned forward, the way my uncle suddenly stopped joking. Then a familiar voice said, warm and clear, "Thank you for inviting me. This is lovely." My chest tightened. I knew that voice. The guest of honor stepped fully into view, tall, confident, calm in a way that came from not needing to prove anything. They scanned the room once, quick, observant, and then their eyes landed on me, standing there, in the corner, holding a tray of half-empty glasses. Their expression changed instantly. Confusion first, then recognition, then something sharper. They took a step forward and said my name, not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly enough for the room to hear. "Why are you serving drinks?" Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. My family froze, and for the first time that night, the story they'd been telling about me cracked, right in front of the one person they never expected to recognize me at all. And that's where everything began to unravel. The room didn't just go quiet, it collapsed into silence. The kind that makes people suddenly aware of their own breathing, the weight of their glass in their hand, the fact that they are very much being seen. The guest of honor, Daniel Harper, stood near the doorway, coat still over one arm, eyes fixed on me. Not confused anymore, focused. I felt my aunt's hand tighten on my elbow. "Don't," she whispered, teeth clenched. "Not now." But it was already too late. Daniel took another step forward. "I asked," he said again, louder this time, "why are you serving drinks?" My mother laughed nervously. "Oh, she was just helping out. You know how family is." Daniel didn't look at her. He didn't even acknowledge her voice. His gaze stayed on me. I slowly set the tray down on the nearest table. The clink of glass sounded unnaturally loud. "I was told to," I said evenly. A ripple moved through the room. Told. Daniel's jaw tightened. Told by whom? Before I could answer, my sister stepped in quickly, smiling too brightly. "It's nothing like that. She just likes staying busy." Daniel finally turned. "And you are?" My sister faltered. I'm her sister." He nodded once. "Interesting." Then he turned back to me. "You're the host," he said, not a question. "Yes," I replied. "And this is your event?" "Yes." "And you're holding a tray because someone decided you should." I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Daniel exhaled slowly and looked around the room. Really looked this time. At the decor, the guest list, the caterers, the musicians. Recognition dawned across his face. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I was under the impression," he said calmly, "that this evening was organized by the person I'm here to honor." My uncle cleared his throat. "Well, yes, but—" Daniel raised a hand. "No," he said. "There's no but." He stepped closer to me. "You invited me," he said. "You coordinated this. You're the reason half the people in this room are here." I nodded. "And yet," he continued, his voice steady, "you're being treated like staff." My mother's smile finally cracked. "This is being misunderstood," she said sharply. "We didn't mean anything by it." Daniel looked at her. "Meaning is irrelevant. Impact isn't." The words hung there. My aunt crossed her arms. "This feels very dramatic." Daniel's eyes flicked to her. "Only if you're uncomfortable being exposed." A few people shifted uncomfortably. Someone near the back cleared their throat. "I think what Daniel is saying," a woman murmured, "is that this doesn't look good." Daniel nodded once. "Exactly." He turned back to me. "May I?" he asked, gesturing gently toward the tray. I hesitated, then nodded. He took the tray from my hands and placed it carefully on the table. "There, that's done." Then he took my arm,
not possessively, not theatrically, and guided us to the center of the room. Every step felt unreal. My family followed us with their eyes, frozen in expressions that ranged from panic to disbelief. Daniel faced the room. "For those of you who don't know," he said, voice carrying easily, "the woman standing beside me is the reason I'm here tonight." A murmur rippled through the guests. "She's a senior partner in our firm, and the architect behind the initiative we're recognizing this evening." My mother's face went white. My sister stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. Daniel glanced down at me briefly. "You didn't tell them?" I shook my head. "I didn't think it mattered." He smiled faintly. "That says a lot about you." Then his gaze hardened again as he looked back at my family. "And it says even more about the people who thought it didn't." My uncle tried to laugh it off. "Well, that's impressive. We didn't realize." "No, you didn't bother to ask." Silence. He continued, "I've worked with her for years. I've seen her lead teams, close deals, and handle pressure that would flatten most people in this room." He paused. "And yet, tonight, she was handed a tray." The shame in the air was thick now. My mother finally snapped. "This is our home." Daniel nodded. "Then you should be proud of who you raised." She opened her mouth, closed it.
A man near the window spoke up. "So, she's the reason this event exists?" "Yes," Daniel said. Another woman added softly, "Then shouldn't she be the one being celebrated?" Daniel smiled. "She is, whether she asked for it or not." I felt my throat tighten. I hadn't wanted this, but I hadn't deserved what came before either. Daniel turned to me. "Would you like to say something?" I looked around the room, at the people who'd taken drinks from my hands, at the family members who'd decided my role without asking, at the guests who were now reevaluating everything they thought they knew. I took a breath. "No," I said. "I think everything that needed to be said has been." Daniel nodded. "Fair." He lifted his glass, one someone else had handed him this time. "I'd like to propose a toast," he said. Everyone followed suit automatically. "To competence without ego," he said. "To leadership without spectacle." His eyes met mine. "And to never confusing silence with insignificance." Glasses clinked. Applause followed, hesitant at first, then real. My family didn't clap. They couldn't, because the hierarchy they'd relied on had just inverted in front of witnesses who mattered. Daniel leaned toward me. "You okay?" I nodded, a strange calm settling over me. "Yes," I said, "I am." But I knew something else now, too. This wasn't over, because humiliation doesn't end with realization. It ends with reaction. And judging by the looks on my family's faces, they were already planning theirs. The applause faded, but the tension didn't. It just changed shape. People returned to their conversations slowly, cautiously, like everyone had collectively agreed not to stare, but couldn't help themselves. I could feel the shift in how I was being looked at now. Not curiosity, not dismissal. Recalculation. Daniel stayed close, not hovering, just present. A quiet signal to the room that whatever line had been crossed wasn't open for debate anymore. My mother moved first. She approached us with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, the kind she used when she wanted to regain control without appearing to fight for it. "Well," she said lightly, "I suppose we should all enjoy the evening now." Daniel nodded politely. "That would be appropriate." She turned to me. "You could have said something earlier." I met her gaze. "I was waiting to see if you would." Her jaw tightened, but she didn't respond. Instead, she turned to Daniel again. "We're very proud of her," she said, emphasizing her like she was reclaiming ownership. "She's always been capable." Daniel tilted his head. "Usually pride shows up before correction." My mother blinked. "I'm sorry?" she said.
"Nothing," Daniel replied smoothly. "Just an observation." She excused herself soon after, retreating toward the kitchen where my aunt and sister were already huddled together, whispering furiously. I watched them from across the room. My sister's hands moved as she spoke, sharp and agitated. My aunt shook her head, lips pressed thin. They weren't embarrassed. They were angry. "You didn't plan that, did you?" Daniel asked quietly. "No," I said, "but I stopped preventing it." He smiled faintly. "That's usually enough." A guest approached, a man I recognized from a few meetings but had never spoken to directly. "I had no idea you were behind the initiative," he said, offering his hand. "Impressive work." "Thank you," I replied. Another followed, then another. Each interaction felt surreal. People who had passed me earlier without a glance were now introducing themselves properly, asking thoughtful questions, listening. Not because Daniel had spoken, but because he had validated. And validation, in rooms like this, changes gravity. Across the room, my cousin caught my eye and looked away quickly. Good. Daniel eventually excused himself to speak with another group, leaving me standing alone for the first time since everything had shifted. That's when my aunt approached. She didn't smile. "I hope you're happy," she said quietly. I took a sip of water. "I am." "You embarrassed your mother." I looked at her. She embarrassed herself. My aunt scoffed. "You always take things so personally." "No," I said calmly. "I take patterns seriously." She leaned in. "You think this changes how this family works?" I met her gaze. "It already has." She laughed softly. "Don't kid yourself. This was one night." "One night," I agreed, "in front of people who matter." Her eyes narrowed. "You think we didn't notice what you were doing?" I smiled faintly. "I wasn't doing anything. I was standing where you put me." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because there was no argument for that. She walked away without another word. The rest of the evening passed in fragments. Conversations, compliments, a few awkward apologies from relatives who didn't quite know what they were apologizing for. My father didn't approach me at all. He stayed near the edge of the room, nursing a drink he never finished, watching me like I was a stranger who had wandered into his house uninvited. That hurt more than the tray, because it meant he'd seen me all along, and chosen not to. When the event finally began to wind down, Daniel found me near the balcony doors. "You held up," he said. "I didn't realize how tired I was," I admitted. "That's what happens when you stop carrying everyone else," he replied. I nodded. "Are you staying?" he asked. "For a bit. I should probably help clean up."
Daniel raised an eyebrow. "No." I smiled. "Old habits." He softened. "Let someone else do it." I hesitated, then nodded. He squeezed my shoulder once and left shortly after, offering polite goodbyes as he went. The moment the door closed behind him, the temperature in the room dropped. My mother approached again, this time without the smile. "We need to talk," she said. "Not tonight," I replied. She crossed her arms. "You don't get to decide when we talk." I met her eyes. "I do now." Her face flushed. "You think because one important person recognized you?" "No," I interrupted gently. "I think because I finally recognized myself." That stopped her. "Everything didn't need to be handled that way," she said. "You're right. It could have been handled with respect from the start." She looked away. My sister appeared beside her, arms folded tightly. "So that's it?" she snapped. "You humiliate us and walk away?" I looked at her. "You humiliated me. I stopped covering for it." She laughed harshly. "You always think you're better than us." I shook my head. "I think I'm done being treated as less." Silence stretched. Then my sister said something that surprised me. "You liked it," she accused, "being seen." I considered that. "I liked being recognized," I said. "There's a difference." She stared at me like she didn't understand the language I was speaking. "Don't expect things to be normal after this," my mother said. I nodded.
I don't. That was the truth, because normal had never worked for me. I helped gather my things quietly and headed toward the door. As I reached for my coat, my father finally spoke. "You could have handled this privately," he said. I turned. "I tried," I replied. "For years." He said nothing after that. I stepped out into the night air, the city sounds grounding and familiar. For the first time since the party started, my shoulders relaxed. I hadn't planned to expose anything. I hadn't planned to confront anyone. I had simply stopped accepting a role that never belonged to me. And that was enough to change everything. But families don't transform overnight. They resist. They regroup. They test boundaries they don't believe are real. And what happened next, after the guests were gone, after the house was quiet, was the moment I realized just how far they were willing to go to put me back in my place. The morning after the party, my phone started ringing at 7:12 a.m. Not vibrating, not buzzing quietly on the nightstand. Ringing.
Insistently. I stared at the screen through half-open eyes and felt my stomach tighten when I saw my mother's name. I didn't answer. The phone rang again, and again. By the fourth call, I sat up and silenced it. A few seconds later, a message came through. "We need to talk. You can't pretend last night didn't happen." I set the phone down and stared at the wall. That was the part she didn't understand. I wasn't pretending. I was choosing. I made coffee, showered, got dressed, and went to work like it was any other day. The normalcy felt almost surreal, like I was walking between two versions of my life that had finally separated. At 9:30, my sister texted, "Everyone is talking about you." I didn't reply. At 9:47, my aunt sent a long message, paragraphs this time. "Your mother is devastated. You blindsided her. You embarrassed the family in front of people who matter. That was cruel. Cruel." I deleted it. At 10:02, my father called. I let it go to voicemail. His message was shorter. "Come by tonight. We need to straighten this out." Straighten it out, meaning put me back where I belonged. I didn't go. Instead, I stayed late at work finishing a report I'd been putting off. It felt grounding to focus on something that responded to effort instead of manipulation. When I got home that evening, there was a car parked in front of my building I recognized immediately. My mother's. My heart dropped. Not in fear, but in exhaustion. I stood there for a moment, keys in hand, debating whether to turn around. Then I remembered Daniel's words. "You don't owe explanations to people who only listen when it benefits them." I walked inside. She was waiting in the lobby, sitting stiffly on one of the chairs, purse on her lap like a shield. She stood as soon as she saw me. "There you are," she said. "You didn't answer my calls." "I saw them," I replied. "We need to talk," she repeated. I nodded once. "We can talk, but not like before." Her eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" "It means," I said calmly, "you don't raise your voice, you don't rewrite what happened, and you don't tell me what my intentions were." She scoffed. "You think you get to set rules now?" "Yes," I said, "I do." She stared at me, stunned. "I raised you," she said sharply. "I know you. You know the version of me that stayed quiet. That version doesn't exist anymore." Her voice trembled, not with sadness, but with anger she was trying to keep contained. "You humiliated us," she said. I leaned against the wall. "You humiliated me, repeatedly, in front of people who mattered to you. I just stopped absorbing it." "That man, your boss, had no right to interfere," she snapped. "He didn't interfere," I said. "He noticed." "That's the same thing." "No," I replied. "Interference is forcing someone into a role they didn't choose." She shook her head. "You always twist things." I took a breath. "Let me ask you something." She crossed her arms. "What?" "Did you ever plan to ask me to stop serving drinks?" Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked away. "That's what I thought," I said quietly. She laughed bitterly. "So now you're punishing us?" "I'm not punishing anyone," I replied. "I'm stepping out of the punishment you assigned me." Her eyes filled, not with tears, but with frustration. You think this ends well? Families don't recover from things like this. I looked at her steadily. Families don't recover from pretending respect isn't necessary. She fell silent. Then she said something that finally cracked the illusion. You made me look weak. There it was. Not embarrassed, not hurt, weak. I didn't. I made myself visible. She shook her head. You've changed. Yes, I said, and you don't like that. She stood there for a long moment, then grabbed her purse. Don't expect invitations, she said coldly. Don't expect warmth. I nodded. I'm not asking for it. She turned to leave, then stopped. You think they'll still care about you in a year? She said over her shoulder. Those people from your world? I met her gaze. That's not my fear anymore. She left without another word. That night, I sat on my couch in the quiet, letting the weight of the day settle. I felt sad, but I didn't feel wrong. The messages kept coming over the next few days. Less frantic, more strategic. My aunt tried guilt. My sister tried sarcasm. My cousin tried pretending nothing had happened. I responded to none of it. Silence this time was intentional. A week later, I received an email from my mother. Short, controlled. We will be hosting Thanksgiving as usual. Let us know if you're coming. No apology. No acknowledgement. An invitation that assumed compliance. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed a response. Thank you for the invitation. I won't be attending this year. I didn't explain. I didn't soften it. I hit send. The fallout was immediate. My sister called, furious. My aunt sent another essay. My father left a voicemail filled with disappointment. I deleted them all. Because something had shifted inside me. I wasn't afraid of being excluded anymore. I was afraid of going back. And the real test wasn't the party. It was what happened when I stopped showing up the way they expected, and what it finally gave me in return. The silence that followed my message was different from the ones before. Not angry, not loud, strategic. Thanksgiving came and went without another word from my mother. No last-minute guilt call, no passive-aggressive reminder, no, "Are you sure?" That told me everything I needed to know. They were waiting for me to break first. I didn't. Instead, I spent Thanksgiving morning alone in my apartment, sunlight streaming through the windows, a mug of coffee warming my hands. I cooked for myself. Nothing elaborate, just food I liked, at a pace that didn't require me to rush or perform. Halfway through the day, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Not the kind that comes from escape, but the kind that comes from alignment. For the first time, I wasn't bracing for a comment. I wasn't adjusting my tone. I wasn't preparing to be diminished. I was just present. That night, my sister posted photos online. Big table, everyone smiling, captions about family and gratitude. I didn't look twice, because I knew what those smiles cost. The next few weeks were quiet. Then the calls started again. Not dramatic this time, careful. My aunt reached out first. I think everyone was just surprised, she said gently. You know how your mother is. I did. That's not an excuse, I replied. She sighed. You don't want to be cut off, do you? I smiled softly to myself. From what? She didn't answer. My cousin tried next. We miss you, she said. Things feel awkward. They were awkward before. They're just honest now. Then my sister called. Her tone was different this time, less sharp, more uncertain. You really aren't coming back? She asked. Back to what? I said. She hesitated. Being around. I chose my words carefully. I'm open to relationships that don't require me to disappear. She didn't say anything for a long moment. I don't know how to do that, she finally admitted. That's okay, I said, but I do. We hung up without resolution, and strangely, that was enough. The biggest shift came when my father called, not angry, not disappointed, tired. I didn't handle things well, he said. I waited. "You've always been capable," he continued. "I just let the family dynamic run itself." "That's a choice," I replied gently. "Yes," he said, "it was." He didn't apologize, but he didn't defend it either. That was progress. A month later, Daniel invited me to a small industry dinner. Nothing formal, just people who knew each other well enough not to posture. At one point, someone asked how my family was doing. I answered honestly, "They're adjusting." Daniel smiled. "So are you." I nodded. "Yes, and it's overdue." He raised his glass. "To outgrowing old roles." I clinked mine against his. That night, walking home, I thought about the tray again, the weight of it in my hands, the way my family hadn't even questioned it, the ease with which they'd decided who I was supposed to be. I realized something important. They hadn't done it because they didn't know me. They'd done it because they were comfortable not knowing me, because knowing me would have required them to change. And people rarely change when someone else absorbs the cost. Weeks turned into months. My family gatherings continued, without me. At first, the absence was pointed. Then it became normalized, which in its own way was freeing. I built new traditions: quiet dinners with friends, holidays spent traveling, Sundays that belonged to me instead of obligation. And slowly, something else happened. The way people spoke to me changed, not just professionally, personally. Because when you stop accepting disrespect in one place, you stop tolerating it everywhere. One evening, months later, my mother called unexpectedly. Her voice was cautious. "We're hosting a small dinner," she said. "No extended family, just us."
I listened. "And?" I asked. She hesitated. "I'd like you to come. As yourself." That phrase mattered. I considered it. "I'll think about it," I said. She didn't push. That mattered too. I did eventually go, not because I needed closure, but because I wanted to see who they were when the audience was gone. It wasn't perfect, but it was different. No trays, no jokes, no reassigned roles, just conversation. Careful, real. And when I left that night, I didn't feel drained. I felt neutral, which told me everything, because neutrality is what respect feels like when it's finally present. I don't know what our family will look like years from now. I don't need to. What I know is this: the night they made me serve drinks at my own party wasn't the moment they humiliated me. It was the moment they lost control of the story. Because once someone sees you clearly and says your name out loud, you can never go back to being invisible. And I never will.